Welcome back. Foxconn, the Taiwanese electronics manufacturer, is pledging to build a factory and a facility in Wisconsin, but taxpayers may not see the benefits until 2043, according to new analysis by the Legislative Fiscal Bureau. The State Assembly Committee is set to vote on the Foxconn bill later today. It would provide the company with $3 billion in incentives toward a $10 billion plant. Joining me right now is Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker. And Governor, it's good to have you on the program. Thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Good morning. Great to be with you. Thanks for being. It's a great day in Wisconsin.
Was it worth the $3 billion in incentives to get this factory from Foxconn to come to Wisconsin?
Absolutely. 13,000 jobs, paying on average more than $53,000 per year plus benefits. $10 billion investment. On top of that, $10.5 billion payroll over the next 15 years alone. 10,000 construction jobs to build this 20 million square foot facility, well, a series of facilities, really an ecosystem, a campus here in the state of Wisconsin, and 22,000 indirect and induced jobs. Absolutely, it's worth it. This is transformational. These LCD displays will be made in America for the very first time right here in the state of Wisconsin, and we think it's transformational, which is why we're calling this region Wisconn Valley, because we think it will help not only Foxconn and all the other businesses related to it, it'll help put Wisconsin on the map all around the world.
But lawmakers are proposing 50 amendments to the bill. Some people are saying, look, yes, it sounds great to have up to 13,000 jobs potentially, but we don't know that that's going to be the number. And you also had to pay up pretty big. And do you agree that taxpayers are not going to break even on this until 2042?
Well, and that's why, and that's a good message for anybody listening, part of the reason for that is big or small alike, whether it's 13 jobs or 13,000 jobs. In Wisconsin, years ago, we eliminated all but a fraction of the state tax on manufacturing as well as on agriculture, our two biggest industries. So if you're a business thinking about moving to Wisconsin right now, you should know whether it's 13, 130, 1,300, or 13,000 jobs, you're one of the best places in the world to be at here in the state of Wisconsin because we value manufacturing. That's why it takes a little bit longer than a typical job out there or a typical project out there. I should add, though, for any Packers fans here in Wisconsin or across really around the globe, they know that one of the biggest turnarounds for the Packers back in the early 90s was signing Reggie White, who was then an All-Pro for the Philadelphia Eagles. Reggie White wasn't just the biggest Packers deal in the history of the team at the time. He was actually one of the top 3 deals of all time, at least back then, in the NFL, and it was worth it because Reggie White wasn't just a player. He helped transform that team into the Super Bowl winning team they were just a few years after he came. We believe the same thing is true, parallel here in the state of Wisconsin. It's not just those 13,000 jobs. It's not just the $10.5 billion payroll and plus the $10 billion capital investment. It's the transformational impact it'll have here in the state of Wisconsin.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point that you make. So can you give us a sense of what you think might be the indirect opportunities as a result of this Foxconn facility or facilities in Wisconsin? Because when you just look at the numbers and you see that, okay, they're going to build this $10 billion facility, but look what you've got to give them, $3 billion in incentives. Make the case that there are perhaps jobs or opportunities we're not seeing that are indirect, like the analogy you just raised.
Yeah, just on the payroll alone, for the next 15 years, which is what we do, the payoff on the $3 billion of incentives the state provides, just on the direct jobs, the 13,000 direct jobs that will come from this new ecosystem, a multitude of facilities, 20 million square feet. Just to put that in perspective, that's enough to put 11 Lambeau Fields in. So sticking with my Packers consistency there. But those are just direct jobs, $10.5 billion worth of payroll versus the $3 billion worth of incentives. On top of that, you've got $10 billion being invested into the capital to build all this. That's 10,000 construction jobs. There are going to be people working in this state from one end of the state to the other to help construct this over the next several years. And then we believe, and the analysis you referenced, the nonpartisan Legislative Fiscal Bureau acknowledge the analysis of about 22,000 indirect and induced jobs. So all the other entities, all the other suppliers, the supply chain issues, we've already seen Corning Glass say that they're going to come because to build these LCD displays, they've got to be close to where these facilities are at. You're seeing other entities, other businesses. We think it'll help us attract talent from across the country and around the world, and keep more of our college and high school graduates here in the state of Wisconsin. So there's a lot of benefits when you see all the things that Foxconn and all the ripple effect brings to the table.
Yeah, so you're expecting people to come from other places in America to start up and live in Wisconsin just for the job opportunity. It was funny to hear the president the other day tell people in New York, look, if you're living in upstate New York and you don't feel like there are job opportunities, the taxes are too high, go to Wisconsin. But what about the threat that the plant is not even built? I mean, Foxconn previously made a pledge to build a plant in Pennsylvania. That never materialized. So are you concerned that they may drop the plans?
Well, two things. One, we have what we call pay-as-you-grow, so they don't get a penny if the jobs don't materialize and they don't make the capital investment. So this is a real firm commitment for us. We even have clawback provisions that we do for all deals like this, big and small alike. So they get paid as they grow. If they don't hit the 13,000 mark, for example, they don't get half of it's based on capital, half of it's based on jobs. So if they don't make the investments in jobs and people working there, if we don't make the jobs and the capital investment, they don't get the full amount of the money. But the other part specific to Pennsylvania is a good example. Pennsylvania, they backed away from because the governor changed. They made a change in the leadership of the state in terms of who the governor was. I said that's a pretty compelling reason here in Wisconsin we shouldn't change who the governor is for the next several years.
So, is the legislation providing the company with just $3 billion in cash, Governor, or what kind of incentives were so important? I recognize that there was a lot of competition for Foxconn. The company has even talked about Michigan, perhaps going to Michigan. So it was obviously they're playing states against one another.
Well, they are. There's a multitude of states. All sorts of states have been talked about, from Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Texas, even others out there. They wanted to be in America because of the president's leadership on this and because they wanted to secure their market here in the United States. We're just pleased that they picked Wisconsin. As I understand it, there were other states, at least one, but multiple states that probably offered a little bit more than we did, although clearly we were in the same ballpark, so there weren't huge differences in terms of the incentives on the table. What we offered was a great workforce, access to water near the Great Lakes, a combination of changes over the last few years in terms of taxes, regulation, litigation, all the things that should be attractive to your viewers, not just if they're bringing 13,000 jobs, but any number of jobs to the state of Wisconsin, right to work, all those things. Not one thing alone was the reason for it, but they looked at the investments in the workforce. They looked at the fact that once the budget we're currently in Wisconsin for the next 2 years is done, we'll have exceeded $8 billion worth of tax relief on income tax and property taxes, even on corporate taxes for manufacturers. So this is really an attractive place to do business in, and they saw that as fitting, and that's why we didn't have to offer the most, but we had to be in the same ballpark.
Yeah, and you tweeted out that it adds over $10.5 billion in payroll to the economy over the next 15 years with construction and indirect jobs, as you've been saying. Governor, we'll be watching the developments. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
Good to see you, sir. Governor Scott Walker there.